Good afternoon. I'm in the Interfaith Center with the Tufts University Chaplain Interview Series. I'm here with the Catholic chaplain now. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Lynn Cooper. I use the she series pronouns, and I'm the Catholic chaplain and chaplaincy team supervisor here at Tufts University.
Great. We just have a few questions for you today.
Mhm.
We'll start out with how you came to be a chaplain at Tufts.
Um, well, I was an undergraduate at Tufts. I graduated in 2002, and when I was here as a student, I fell in love with the study of religion. It just made me come alive. In fact, I knew I wanted to study religion when I was going to college, and so that was one of the um, requirements that I had, not that I told anyone, but the requirements that I had personally for the school that I wanted to go to. And it really was my first experience of deep community and care within the religion department. Um, and after graduation, I went to live in Maine for a year. And during that time, I decided, no, I want to go to divinity school. And, I, at the last second, I looked uh, at the different programs and I said, wow, the Master of Divinity just sounds so kind of more holistic. It's not just the academic study of religion. It's how do you work with people? How do you show up for um, marginalized communities and folks? And like, how do you um, uh, put into practice what you're learning in the classroom? And so without any knowledge of what the word ministry meant or pastoral or vocation or discernment, I signed up for divinity school for the Master of Divinity. And I knew from the probably first 2 minutes of the first day that I was in the right place. I didn't know why,
Wow.
but I thought, I heard the woman who became my advisor. I heard her speak at the opening retreat for my program, and as I said, I didn't understand why I was there, but I knew I was in the right place. Um, and so in divinity school, I did some field work at a parish at a Lutheran congregation, and it just wasn't the kind of work that was making me come alive. And
Hmm.
um, so my last year, I ended up reaching out to the university chaplain at Tufts and kind of with my tail between my legs, very last minute, do you have room for a field ed student? And they already had 2 field eds that year, and they graciously made room for me. And while while we didn't use this language then, it was really my work and my task for that position was to work with the nuns, right?
Hmm.
People who don't identify with a religious or philosophical tradition, not um, folks who we wouldn't ordinarily see walk through our doors. That was the work I was doing,
Right.
and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But then out of divinity school, I ended up getting a job at Al Boys Catholic High School, which was really wonderful. But I knew that my call was really to work with college students. And a, a year later, I got the call to come back to Tufts, and their Catholic chaplain had left, and here I am. So I began, and I don't think I really knew what a Catholic chaplain was, um, but was learning as I went, and um, a lot of it was, uh, really learning how much I didn't know, and
Right.
learning how much I couldn't have known. I had never set up for liturgy before. Um, but I also wasn't allowed to be an altar server as a child. So how was I supposed to know?
Right.
There were things like that where the learning curve was kind of steep, but on the day to day, the pastoral presence, the ministry of presence was kind of helped me grow some roots here.
Yeah. I think that's if I can take the questions a bit out of order here, because I think that leads us into a very interesting question there about pastoral care. because a lot of these interview series are set up to try to expose people more to the resources that we have available with the chaplaincy in terms of pastoral care and um, in terms of ministry, in terms of resources. So how would you describe pastoral care? What does it mean to you?
Mhm. When I think of pastoral care, the image that really comes up to me is accompaniment. Um, I can provide a listening ear um, in a non-judgmental space. I can be a non-anxious presence is my greatest hope that I am on this campus and beyond. Um, but pastoral care, I think we all have different, we connected to the different parts of this terminology. But when I really think of the work that I do in the pastoral care that takes shape in my ministry, it's really one of walking with people and learning side by side and listening deeply and um, and creating that space for processing, creating that space for asking uh, sometimes really difficult and dangerous questions, depending on where you have grown up. Some theological questions or existential questions could have been too dangerous to even entertain.
Right.
Um, and so it's really about creating a spaciousness for folks who are exploring and folks who um, sometimes we meet people who are really hurting. Um, Sometimes we meet people who are just really curious. And often it begins with, I don't know what this is supposed to look like. What am I supposed to say? Which I hear all the time. And it's just I try to put people at ease and just say, this is just a conversation. Like, let's just get to know each other. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's lovely.
Mhm.
When you have those sorts of conversations, when people come to you and um, are hurting or are stuck with some sort of question in their minds, what sort of topics do you, usually come up? Like what do people usually come to you with?
Yeah, well, a whole wide range of issues, anything from housemate uh, tangles or tensions, questions about discernment, or like, I want to be um, a doctor, but I want to think of this as a vocation. How do I do that when no one else is really talking about that? Or, you know, students who are wrestling with family back home, whether it's, a family member who is ill, a family member who has passed, um, or tensions within the family that get brought out in different ways when students leave home. Sometimes it's a respite away from it, and sometimes other things surface. You know, I've had conversations with students who are seeking support after an experience of sexual assault, after bias incidents. Um, and, we offer a unique kind of care that often it goes really well with counseling mental health services, their offerings, but ours is of a different shape. And so it's really a wide range right now. And this happens all the time, but I feel like because of COVID and because of just this moment, there's been a lot of clarifying energy around. And so there's a lot of people who are looking to reconnect with their faith, who maybe had, some negative experiences with the church or with their tradition. As we know, churches hurt people better than anybody. And so it can be a real challenge to say, okay, there's this institution that hurt me, but like my identity, my religious identity is more than just the institution. Like it is something that is part of me. And so reclaiming that identity can be a really important part of one's uh, formation, certainly spiritual development. Um, So that's another really big theme that comes up.
Right.
Issues around identity, sexuality. Yeah.
Yeah. So for those students that maybe haven't come to you or to any other of the other chaplains looking for pastoral care, um, could you maybe say, is there anything that you wish that they knew about pastoral care, or even the people that do come to you, uh, something that you wish everyone knew about pastoral care that
Mm,
you don't think is a very widespread piece of information?
that's a good question. Um, just that it can be for everyone. I think, I have friends who I call to, sometimes, they put on their chaplain hat for me, and it's really helpful. Or a spiritual director to talk to at these things. Like I think like normalizing it in this way. I mean, our students are so deep and so substantive, and like the things that make them tick and the things that drive them. And it's really demanding work to take a step back and ask the questions of why do I feel this way? Where is this energy coming from? Um, and it's very countercultural too. So I think it makes a lot of sense that this, especially within a university environment that's like very high achieving, and at times like life gets really imbalanced, that while we do see a lot of people, we don't, there's tons of people we never encounter. And that's fine, but I would also just say that I think that this kind of support could be, it's so different from like academic work, spiritual life. It doesn't use the same rubric. It doesn't, it's not as linear. um so yeah, I would just say that the invitation is always there.
Right.
Like it's really hard to offend us, I think. I don't know how else to say. Maybe I shouldn't speak for everybody, but I feel like, we meet people where they are. And
Right.
if someone reaches out once and then like doesn't follow up, I'm not like, where is that person? They
Right.
left me hanging. It's like you just call the next time, or like
Right.
you send an email the next time you want to. It's as I said, it's a non-judgmental space, and I think we try to embody that in a most gracious way, because everyone's experiencing their own challenges, especially in this moment.
Right.
Mhm.
Of course. Yeah. So that's sort of like people can reach out no matter what challenges that they're experiencing. Not
Mhm.
just they don't just have to be struggling with do I become a priest or
Yeah.
I don't know how many people are struggling with that particular question in this
Yeah.
day and age, but yeah. All right. So moving off of the pastoral care questions,
Mhm.
um, I'm curious, because you've mentioned that there's a little difficulty involved with COVID, and you see a lot
Mhm.
of people coming with pastoral care with regards to COVID, or just issues that have come up with
Mhm.
regards to that. So I'm wondering, what is a ritual, a practice, or an idea that's been sort of on your mind lately, in it, especially with regards to COVID, but if it doesn't have to be, that's been grounding you, or that's been uh, sort of
Mhm.
eating at the back of your mind.
Sure. I mean, the big one off the top of my head is communion, you know, um,
Mm.
which for many people is like the reason why they go to mass, is to receive the Eucharist. Um, and as we know, like not everyone receives the Eucharist like even in non-COVID times. There are communities all across the globe who only receive Eucharist once a year. There are people who attend mass every week and choose never to receive Eucharist. Um, uh, there are people who are homebound who don't receive. And I think what I've been thinking a lot this year is that this is a real moment for solidarity around the church, and a reorienting of and kind of a kick to our sacramental imagination. From my context as a Catholic, like sacraments are big, there's baptism and matrimony, and how is a sacrament defined? It's an outward sign of God's grace, so something made physical. And we have these official ones, but then we have like the everyday ones of like sitting here and talking to Connor Elliott, who I love, like this is a sacramental moment of like getting to learn from you and learn together and see where we go. Um, and I think that this moment is challenging us as Catholics to um, stretch that sacramental imagination and like look at our dinner tables as holy places and look at our walks on the sidewalk as like walking towards communion, like, and seeing Jesus in the faces of like, go, you want the Eucharist, like go look at people's faces, like there's Jesus. you know it's not He's not just in the host, um he's out in the world. And I think that that's especially powerful to me right now as I'm seeing churches open up again and people having to like reserve their spaces to be present. And I know how powerful it is to be in person. And also, I'm just not ready to receive yet. Like I don't want to receive Eucharist yet. I might on Easter when we with our community, if people want to. But that's and the other big thing I'd say is I think a lot about the cup. Um, for those of you who don't know, in Catholic congregations, there's in communion, there's the body of the bread that's distributed, and then a cup of wine, the blood, and it's one cup that's shared with everyone. So a few weeks back, I was cleaning out the sacristy, and there were just so many vessels. There were so many vessels in the sacristy of, sets that people have given us. I mean, they're all gifts. I've never purchased anything, those kinds of objects. um, uh, in my 13 years here, they've always existed. They already were here. Sometimes some of them have inscriptions that they were gifts, like in someone else's name. There were just so many chalices. And it just gave me pause, because I thought, we're never going back there. Like they're not going to be used in the same way. And um and really, for many Catholic congregations, they only just started receiving from the cup. Like historically, only priests were able to consume the blood. And so there's just a sadness and a sense of loss there, and also a sense of reality that like this is just not tenable. It was probably never a good idea, like public health wise. um but there's something really powerful and really beautiful about the shared cup. It's so embodied, it's kind of so sensuous that you're like sharing this vessel. And Yeah, that's just something else that's on my mind, of like how COVID and everything is going to change our experience of, yeah, and already has changed our experience of these elements of Catholic tradition, which I think, yeah, are important, but they're not all of it, and um, plenty of people live very rich sacramental lives, and they don't receive communion. And we have a lot to learn from that, instead of this transactional way of consuming. There's more work to be done there than just waiting in line to consume, and then you're like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Cool. Well, it seems like we're a little short on time, I believe, but I have a few more questions that I do want to get
Okay.
through. First of all, just a general question. What's the most memorable moment that you've ever had working as a chaplain at Tufts? Could be your
Um,
favorite event, could be just a random time, like walking through campus.
um, I have one that I've written about, so it's very it's something I've reflected on quite a bit, and it was I was in the this is a bunch of years ago. I was in the Interfaith Center in my office, and a student was coming, a young man who had just visited the Vatican with his family, and he wanted to tell me all about it. And often people just assume that I've been, and I've definitely never been. So like I was tell me all of it, you know.
Right.
And so as he was telling me this, um, it was Friday, and so Juma was beginning, and the former Muslim chaplain Naila Baloch, who began when I began, we began together the same year, and we had just graduated from Harvard Divinity School together. So she's like kind of like a soul sister, I'd say, in some ways. And her husband was singing the call to prayer, and it might make me cry just talking about this, but we were sitting in my office, and just and he just stopped talking, and we listened to the call to prayer, and then we listened to the silence after the call to prayer, and we had been called to prayer. You know, it was this profound gift, and just such kind of like a concrete example of like what happens when you share holy space, and like what happens when you're in community with um people from other religious traditions and philosophical traditions. And this person from a very, very Catholic family, traditionally Catholic family, talking about the Vatican, like moved to tears. He had never experienced Juma before. He didn't know Arabic. It didn't matter. Like he heard the call to prayer, and it's one of my favorite memories.
Oh, that's really lovely. Yeah, I actually last year I worked Fridays here in the IFC, so I got to hear the call to prayer every week, and I'm really missing it now as it happens.
I bet.
All right. So this is a random, completely off the cuff question.
Okay.
What's something that you believe?
Oh, I believe in transformation. That's what I believe. We're in this season of transformation in spring. Those little flowers that were just poking up a week or two ago now are opening I can see on my walks. And I've seen human beings in my life and myself transform our way of living in the world and being. And I've seen relationships transform. I've seen, we're in this season 2 of Lent and heading towards Easter, which is the resurrection, new life being possible. And I feel like I carry with me all those stories of whether they're stories in the scriptures or stories from my life or my friend's life. And all of those kind of inform my sense of hopefulness, like a gritty hopefulness, like a kind of a big picture hope, not like a particular, I've got a laundry list of hopes I want to see in action, but like kind of just a big picture posture towards hope. Also, my son's obsessed with Transformers. And so throughout the day, so many times he does I probably have one like on the table. Oh, they're all over there. But throughout the day, he does the sound like, and he'll yell, transform. And it's like an imperative, like that's how I hear it. I hear it as he's kind of declaring it into being, like calling out to me to transform. Like it feels like it's, you know, I'm being called from another plane to always remember the need to transform and grow. And um yeah, that's just one of like something I'm thinking a lot about right now. As I look across the room, you can't see, but it's all filled with transformers, and they all have their own stories and like in different shows and whatever. But yeah, spirit's calling us to transform, whether it's a 4-year-old boy or someone else in your life or the trees.
Well, speaking of transformation and growth, um, do you have do you have an idea of where you would like to see the Tufts University Chaplaincy go in the future? How you would like it to transform and grow?
Hmm. Well, if it's transformation in the past, if it is anything like, you know, is going to tell me anything, it's that this I trust that it's going to continue to happen. You know, I've been here for 13 years and have seen, you know, the approach and methods change dramatically, and always, you know, have that student centered core. But I'm excited to see where we're going to grow. Um I think the big thing for me would be to deepen some of the relationships that we already have. Um, and that takes time, and it takes people, and it takes commitment. And I think we've just kind of like scratched the surface of some of that. But I am so delighted that you know, our chaplaincy team is growing, and with our new Hindu advisor and Africana spirituality advisor, and um, you know, I'm really proud to be part of a multi-faith team that's a team. That's like really rare. You know, often it's um, you know, people can be kind of siloed, and I think that the way our infrastructure is built and our kind of connective tissue is built, it's just going to get deeper. So that's my hope, I would say, to continue to grow outward, but to go deep.
Oh, well, I think that's a really good note to end on. I just have one final question for you, which
Okay.
is, what's the best coffee on campus?
Ooh. Well, the res cold brew
Mm,
or nitro is pretty good. But I gotta say, I don't drink that much coffee anymore, which is too bad for me. But I love tea, and
it's the best tea on campus, then.
the best tea on campus. I love because it just takes me back to being a student, because they've had this forever, whether it was at Brown and Brew or now at the Tower Cafe, is the black mango iced tea,
Mm, don't think I've had that. I'll have to try it.
or black tea peach or whatever it is. But either one of those will do on like a just getting warm spring day. Yeah.
Well, that's the perfect timing
Yes.
because by the time these interviews are out, well, it's already spring, but it'll still be just getting warm, early
Mhm.
spring.
Awesome.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for being with us here in this space.
Hmm.
And if anyone wants to contact you or is looking to uh, receive pastoral care or just wants to talk, where can
Hmm.
they reach you?
Oh, they can reach me by my email, which is just lynn.cooper at Tufts, Lynn.Cooper, or my extension, which is 2044. Hmm.
Wonderful. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Connor. Great to be with you.
It's wonderful to be with you too.